Hello dear ladies, Menopause Taylor here, giving you yet another tutorial on how to make sure your menopause works for you. Because if it doesn't, you'll need a mechanic to fix it. Today is all about mechanics, and that is why I'm wearing this mechanic t-shirt and hard hat. You are fixing to watch video 338. That's what they say in Texas when they're preparing to do something. It makes no sense at all when you think about the proper meaning of the verb to fix. But things like proper meanings mean nothing in Texas. If you are preparing to do something, about to do something, on your way to do something, or even just thinking about doing something, if you're a Texan, you'll say you're fixin' to do something. And you won't even say something, you'll say something. Fixin' to do something. So this is the last of our videos on your management options for preventing endometrial uterine cancer. I've given you separate videos in every category that offers any options for protecting your uterus from endometrial uterine cancer. They've included general principles in video 331, dietary options in video 332, dieting options in video 333, exercise options in video 334, herbal options in video 335, and HRT options in videos 336 and 337. I skipped vitamin, mineral, and supplement options and non-hormonal medication options because there aren't any. But prevention of endometrial uterine cancer does include some mechanical options, so that's what we'll address today. And although this is the last video on management options for preventing endometrial uterine cancer, I will give you one more video tutorial for this unit next week, and it will address menopause management after having endometrial uterine cancer. As you probably already know, all of chapter 31 is on endometrial cancer in my book, both edition 1 and edition 2. But as usual, I'll demonstrate some things in this video that you cannot see in a book. So let's start by defining what constitutes a mechanical option. Mechanical options for preventing endometrial uterine cancer are devices or procedures that can serve the purpose of decreasing or erasing your risk of endometrial uterine cancer with or without the use of medications. For the most part, mechanical options include medical devices and surgical procedures. And the mechanical options for preventing endometrial uterine cancer include both. So I'll be rummaging around in my toolkit here to show you the mechanical options for preventing endometrial uterine cancer. They are the Progestin IUD, uterine ablation, and hysterectomy. So I'll go through and present each mechanical option one at a time. First, we have the Progestin IUD. The acronym IUD is for intrauterine device. So it's a device that goes into your uterus and prevents endometrial uterine cancer. Now, pay attention to things that are obvious. The word intrauterine contains the word uterus, so this device goes into your uterus, not your vagina. I cannot tell you how many women make the mistake of thinking it goes into your vagina. If you don't know the difference between your uterus and your vagina, go back to video number 7 on anatomy to review. If you recall the basics about the role of progestogen with regard to prevention of endometrial uterine cancer, it functions as a lawnmower. So a Progestin IUD sits in your uterus and keeps the lawn mowed so that it never builds up and grows. There are 4 Progestin IUDs. And once the IUD is in your uterus, it releases progestin into your uterus on a daily basis until it's empty. When it's empty, you have to have the old one removed and the new one inserted. The 4 progestin IUDs all contain the very same progestin, levonorgestrel, but they differ in how much levonorgestrel they contain. And the quantity of levonorgestrel that they contain determines how long they last. It does not reflect the daily dosage per se. All 4 progestin IUDs deliver essentially the same dosage of progestin to your uterus each day, but the ones with more last a longer time, and the ones with less last a shorter time. There's one called Skyla that lasts 3 years, another called Kylena that lasts 4 years. The Liletta lasts 5 years, and the Mirena lasts 6 years. Here I have a Kylena IUD. Notice the T shape here. Some people mistakenly call intrauterine devices intrauterine coils. Well, they're all shaped somewhat like this. So you can see that they are not coils. But you can also see that this is pretty tiny. Next to my finger, it's tiny. This little thing contains enough levonorgestrel to protect your uterus from endometrial uterine cancer for 4 years. It does require an office visit with your gynecologist to get it inserted. That's another obvious clue that it goes into your uterus and not your vagina. But it only takes about 3 minutes, and it does cause one strong menstrual cramp for about 30 seconds when it first goes in. But after that, you shouldn't even know it's there. So, to insert an IUD, your doctor just retracts this T-shaped part of the IUD into an inserter sleeve. And then, to get the IUD into your uterus, he or she slides it through the hole in your cervix. You'll recall that in video 7 I taught you that the hole in your cervix is nothing but a door. And in this case, it's the door for the IUD to enter your uterus. So now I'll kind of switch props so that now you can see your uterus. Once it goes through the door, it goes up into your uterus, and it goes into the body of your uterus like this. At this point, your doctor just pulls back on the sleeve, which causes the T-shape to reappear, and it just stays in your uterus like that. And once it's in your uterus like this, there will be strings that dangle that your doctor will trim so that they hang just into your vagina. And that's the way that they can remove the IUD, by just putting gentle traction on the IUD. And so removal is very quick and easy. From there, you just use the very basic logic that I taught you at the beginning of this unit. Progestogen is what prevents endometrial uterine cancer. And an IUD is a means of putting a progestogen delivery system right in your uterus. So the progestin IUDs constitute a progestin-containing mechanical device that prevents endometrial uterine cancer. Here's a chart of the different progestin IUDs and their slight differences. This chart depicts the 4 IUDs across the top row. The second row designates that they all contain the same progestin, levonorgestrel. The third row designates how long each lasts. The fourth row gives you their total dosages of levonorgestrel, while the fifth row designates how much is released on a daily basis. And the sixth row just indicates the manufacturer. IUDs are very popular. Most women like the fact that they can get it inserted and then forget about it for years. There are very, very, very few complications with the IUDs. Hardly any. All these IUDs are all really indicated for birth control. So using them as the progestin component of your menopausal hormone replacement constitutes what we call off-label use. But we use a lot of medical products in an off-label manner. Off-label just means that you're using it for a purpose other than its specified FDA-approved purpose. One of the biggest reasons women like the IUD for preventing endometrial uterine cancer is that of all the progestogen options, it produces the fewest yucky side effects typical of progesterone. The yucky side effects of progesterone are drowsiness, brain fog, acne, weight gain, bloating, and depression. But levonorgestrel IUDs tend to produce either none of these side effects or very rare instances of these side effects. So the levonorgestrel IUDs constitute the least invasive mechanical option for preventing endometrial uterine cancer. And that's about it for the IUDs. The second mechanical option for preventing endometrial uterine cancer consists of completely destroying your endometrial lining. The procedure for doing this is called an endometrial ablation. I don't have actual tools in here for that, for an endometrial ablation, so I'm going to use the closest thing available for purposes of demonstration. The word ablation means destruction. So endometrial ablation means destruction of the endometrial lining inside your uterus. Obviously, if the endometrium is destroyed, it is no longer present to pose a risk of endometrial uterine cancer. So this is an office procedure that can involve a variety of techniques for destroying your endometrial tissue. None of them involves an incision. Instead, they involve inserting an instrument through your cervix and into your uterus and using it to perform the act of destruction of your endometrial uterine lining. Your doctor may use any of the following means of destruction: electricity, high energy radio waves, fluid, a heated balloon, microwaves, or cold. They all are similar in their ability to destroy your endometrium. So I'll just say a few words about each one. Electrical ablation involves an electric current carried through either a wire loop or a roller ball. As the electrified loop or ball comes into contact with your endometrium, it destroys it. Radio frequency ablation involves the use of an electrical mesh. Your doctor inserts it into your uterus while it's all balled up and condensed, and then expands it once it's inside your endometrial cavity. And then he or she sends an electric current made by radio waves through it to destroy your endometrium. Hydrothermal ablation is the use of a heated fluid that is pumped into your uterus. As it fills your endometrial cavity, it destroys the endometrial lining. Balloon ablation involves insertion of a catheter that has a balloon on its end. Your doctor fills the balloon with fluid and then heats the fluid. And the heat destroys your endometrial lining. Microwave ablation involves a thin probe that is inserted into your uterus. And then your doctor sends a microwave energy through the probe to destroy your endometrial lining. Cryoablation involves the use of a freezing cold probe to destroy your endometrial lining. So, two methods involve electrical currents, two involve heated fluid, one involves microwaves, and one involves freezing. And of course, medical technology companies will probably come up with all sorts of other techniques over time. So here's a chart of the currently available endometrial ablation techniques. This just shows you the different techniques in the first column, the application tool in the second column, and the destruction method in the third column. And it's semi-color coded to group similar destruction methods. The risks of endometrial ablation are rare and they include bleeding, infection, tearing of the uterine wall, damage to the intestines, and overloading of fluid into your bloodstream. The more common problem is failure to destroy every morsel of your endometrium. If there's any left behind, it could still become cancerous. If there's any functional endometrium left after an ablation, we call it an incomplete ablation. So it's incomplete as opposed to being complete. And the certainty of preventing endometrial uterine cancer depends on how completely the endometrium is destroyed. If your ablation is complete and there's no endometrium left behind, you completely erase your risk of endometrial uterine cancer by 100%. Of course, you can still get other kinds of uterine cancer. But if your endometrial ablation is incomplete and there is some functional endometrium left behind, you still have a risk for getting endometrial uterine cancer. It's probably a lot less, but no one knows the degree to which you've decreased your risk. Endometrial ablation is very popular, and that's because it's quick and easy and involves no recovery. And you'll never bleed again or need progestogen as long as your ablation is complete. And not needing progestogen with your estrogen for menopause is the thing women like the best. And that's because progestogens cause the yucky side effects of drowsiness, brain fog, acne, weight gain, bloating, and depression. In consultation after consultation, women complain about having to take a progestogen with their estrogen in order to protect their uterus. So an endometrial ablation erases that requirement. Some women go so far as to want a hysterectomy. And that's our third mechanical option for prevention of endometrial uterine cancer. When it comes to preventing endometrial uterine cancer, any kind of hysterectomy will do. So what do I have in my toolkit for this? My favorite prop of all. This is your reproductive anatomy, Menopause Taylor style. As long as you remove your uterus, you remove your risk for uterine cancer. But that does not mean you remove your risk for other gynecologic cancers. To give you a quick review of the different surgical procedures that I taught you way back in video 8, here are the root words for your reproductive organs. Hyster means uterus. Salpinx or salpingo means fallopian tube. Oof or oofer means ovary. Then the addition of the suffix ectomy to any of those words means removal of that organ. With regard to the different types of hysterectomy, total hysterectomy means removal of both your uterus and cervix. Partial hysterectomy means removal of your uterus only and keeping the cervix. And then we have some common additions to specify number. Uni means 1, bi means 2. And finally we have the root lateral to mean side, right side or left side. Unilateral means one side, bilateral means 2 sides. But then to address your fallopian tubes and ovaries, you have to add words that designate which of these anatomical parts were removed. So, bilateral salpingectomy means removal of both fallopian tubes. Bilateral oophorectomy means removal of both ovaries. Just as with anything else in the world of menopause medicine, everything you do is a matter of balancing your benefits against your risks. And the benefits and risks differ for every single woman. We're all different in a lot of different ways. So if you decide to consider a hysterectomy, Be sure to really know all your personal benefits and risks. That's the most critical thing of all. This is one of the things for which you should definitely schedule a consultation with me before having or even scheduling your surgery. I will make sure you know the ramifications of every single option. I'll make sure you see the big picture so that you don't look back years later and say, why didn't anyone tell me that I could have reduced my risks for other diseases if I'd only done it differently? So let me just delineate the different disease risks that you decrease with removal of each of these different reproductive organs, okay? So if we go back to our fully stocked board here, if you only remove your uterus, you've done a partial hysterectomy. You erase your risk of endometrial uterine cancer. You erase your risk of other uterine cancers. But you still have the risk of cervical cancer, fallopian tube cancer, and ovarian cancer. If you remove both your uterus and your cervix, that's a total hysterectomy, and you erase your risk of both endometrial uterine cancer, other uterine cancers, and cervical cancers. But you still have the risk of fallopian tube and ovarian cancers. If you remove your uterus, cervix, and fallopian tubes, but you retain your ovaries, you erase your risk of endometrial uterine cancer, other uterine cancers, cervical cancers, and you reduce your risk of fallopian tube cancer by 90%, 90, not 100, 90. But you still have all the risk for ovarian cancer. If you remove your uterus, cervix, fallopian tubes, and both ovaries, you reduce your risk of endometrial uterine cancer, all the other uterine cancers, cervical cancers, and you reduce your risk of fallopian tube and ovarian cancer by 90%, plus you reduce your risk of breast cancer by 50%. Most women fail to realize the added perk of reducing your breast cancer risk by removing the ovaries. If you remove only one fallopian tube or ovary and you keep the other, your risk for fallopian tube cancer and ovarian cancer is exactly the same as if you didn't remove either one. So you gain nothing in terms of reducing your risk of fallopian tube or ovarian cancers. So here's a chart of these surgical procedures, their meanings, and their associated cancer risk reductions. This chart just lists your 4 reproductive organs in the first row, the name for surgical removal of each in the second row, and the cancer risk reductions for each in the third row. Time and time again, I have a woman in consultation who's had a hysterectomy during peri or post-menopause at about age 50 for heavy bleeding or fibroids, and she kept her ovaries. When she discovers that she could have removed them and gained this much reduction in her risks for fallopian tube, ovarian, and breast cancers, she is flabbergasted that her doctor did not discuss any of this with her. So schedule a consultation with me before planning your surgeries or deciding what you want. I will save you so many pitfalls. So the summary for today is that there are 3 mechanical options for reducing your risk of endometrial uterine cancer: Progestin IUDs, endometrial ablation, and hysterectomy. And they are vastly different with regard to ease, risks, and long-term benefits. The key is to weigh your benefits against your risks and do what's best for you. And okay, even though I made 3 separate charts for these mechanical options, I thought it might be helpful to make one that combined all of them in one place. So here it is. The first row designates the 3 different categories of mechanical options. The second row designates what's involved in pursuing each mechanical option. The third row indicates the duration of the option's effect. The fourth row presents the results of the option. The fifth row indicates the remaining endometrial uterine cancer risk or degree of decrease in that risk. The sixth row designates any effect on your risk of cervical cancer with each mechanical option. The seventh row designates any effect on your risk of fallopian tube cancer with each mechanical option. And the eighth row designates any effect on your risk of ovarian cancer with each mechanical option. You can find all four charts in the description box that's in the link just below this screen, or you can go to menopausetailor.me where you can also schedule a consultation. I can help you tremendously with all this stuff and more in a consultation. And I can also help you a lot if you subscribe to my channel and my newsletter. I can help you a little bit if you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. Next week, we'll have the very last video in the Endometrial Uterine Cancer Unit. It will be on menopause management after having endometrial uterine cancer. Until then, bye my dears.